Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. This is Art of Fry and this is my first YouTube tutorial video, and I'm going to share with you how I made this illustration. It's one of my original characters which was inspired from Tibetan culture. So in this video I'm going to show you my process, including the sketching, choosing the references, shading, and finally the rendering. So it's not going to be an in-depth video because due to time constraint I had to speed up the whole process, but I will be explaining the portions accordingly. So hope you guys enjoy, and since this is my first tutorial video, so if there are any mistakes I would like to apologize beforehand, and if you want to suggest anything, please do so in the comments. So first of all, I'm using this app called PureRef, where you can compile all your references and the UI is so easy to use. Basically, I have included all the references similar to Tibetan culture and also the poses and some artists' illustrations which has inspired this process. So I've prepared a sketch beforehand, and it's mostly a trial and error process. So first we begin by sketching out the pose. It doesn't have to be like a clean line art or something, it's just have to be a rough sketch. As you can see, I'm concentrating on both sides of the sketch and not just at one part at a time. You can also use the transformation tools to adjust the pose and clean up some parts. Next up, on a different layer, I choose a different color and sketch out the clothing. And you can see I'm switching back and forth from my sketch reference. It is very important to use a different layer for different materials or different elements in your illustration, as it gives you a sense of control over all your drawings. And even while doing this, you don't need to focus on the details. You just need to know which elements lie where. So just a rough idea sort of thing. So once you're done with the rough sketch, you can make a cleaner line art on top of it using a different layer and a symmetry tool. Basically what this does is it gives you a sense of idea, like which material is where or which object is where, and you can even add some folds or details to your clothing, to the body. So once the line art is cleaned out, you can use a different layer, and using the pencil tool you can mask out the whole of the line art. It gives you a sense of control, as it is easier to shade once you've masked out the whole character. And I also do a bit of background. It's not actually a background, it's just a texture to determine the light and shadows. And then on top of your mask layer, you can use a soft brush and do some basic value rendering. Not that much of a detail, just to know the basic values from where the light is coming and all your shadows. After this, you can add a different layer on top of the mask layer, and you can use the selection tool to mask out each of the objects and give it a different local value. Local values are basically values of different objects, like they are different in color. Some may be darker, some may be lighter, so giving a local value gives you a sense of information regarding the object. At this point, you just need to be sure that what color looks brighter or either darker in grayscale. After that, you set the shading layer to linear light and decrease its opacity. And then on a different layer, you can mask each of the sections using the lasso tool and add some colors to it. Once again, I would like to suggest to you that while coloring, you can use different layers because it gives you a sense of freedom to change the color whenever you like it. So all this coloring is done beneath the shadow layer, beneath the shading layer I mean, because once the shading layer is set to linear light, it can automatically show you the values of the color as well. Once you're satisfied with all the values and colors, you can merge all the layers from beginning to the top, and then you can be ready for the rendering. At the beginning, I would like to suggest you to use a soft brush because it gives you a sense of ease and confidence to do so. But using too much of a soft brush can make your drawings look muddy. And while rendering, what I can suggest you is use the hue saturation sliders a bit, because for the tips I can see that once you're in the shadow side of the rendering, you can use more saturated color and shift the hues towards a bit darker colors, and also decrease the value because it gives variation in your colors. If you just follow a monochromatic order, it makes your drawing look flat. Even though you have shaded your drawings, it still looks kind of flat. So a change in hue and saturation can make your drawings pop up a bit more, and it makes it look interesting. So after that, I've followed the same process for the clothes. So basically using the soft brush. We will be using a textured brush later on, but for now, just to gain some confidence, I'm using the soft brush. So basically, while rendering, you should know where the folds of the clothes lie and what sort of material are you rendering. I will be making some videos in the future regarding all the materials and textures and how to render them. So while rendering, I'm keeping in mind how the light is reacting to the material and the direction of light that it's coming from, and also how the bounce light reacts to a certain surface. So you need to keep all these things in mind while also making changes in the hue and saturation. You need to know where the cloth is relaxed and where the clothing has been tensed, with all the folds and the position of the arms, the legs, the torso. Also, while rendering, you should keep in mind like which part of the body is coming forward and which is backward. That helps to determine the part which will be in the shadows and the part which will be in the light. Like if you're doing a sculpting or 3D sculpting, just imagine like you're pulling some parts in the front and pushing the rest towards the back. So all these things you need to keep in mind. And also different materials have a different luster. That what gives them their own textures. Because if they all have the same luster, it will make all the materials look almost the same. At this point you can refine some of the patterns. I don't focus much on the patterns because I feel like that's a very time consuming process. As much as I said in the beginning that the line art need not be clean and stuff, but if you're doing certain art forms like a very graphic thing or like anime art style, for that you need to make your line art very crisp and very clean, because in that art form, line art supports the whole thing. And in this part, I have started to use the textured brush, and now I'm focusing on all the materials and its texture. Like the helmet is basically made up of some kind of metal, so I'm giving it a bit of a erosion, or what do you call it, weathering. And also I'm adding some details like carvings and all. Also, if you're a beginner digital artist, I suggest you to be familiar with the soft brush and use it to even create the texture, which a textured brush can also do, because once you're familiar with those brushes, then you can use the textured brush more efficiently. Because textured brush, as much as it looks cool, it's very difficult to control it if you're a beginner. At this point, you can even start focusing on details, but it totally depends upon you, because it can either make or break your drawings. Like you've built a foundation well, but if you're adding too much of details and don't know how to render it, then it can make your drawings look kind of a messy. And also, while using the textured brush, you should be aware of the 3D space and how the object represents itself out there. Because like controlling a soft brush is much easier, but using a textured brush, if you don't know how to use it, then it can make your drawings look a bit of, what do you say, non-informative or giving the wrong information. And once again, I suggest you to do this on a different layer. Many professional digital artists, they do it all in one layer or two layers, at the most two layers, but I suggest you to do everything on a different layer, because if you make a mistake, you can just delete the layer and start new. This part of the rendering is actually very meditative. You can, I think at this part, this is the part where you reach the flow state, because you know you have rendered all the forms and shadows. You're pretty confident about where to put it textures and how you should paint it. So it kind of becomes like an autopilot mode. So you know what you're doing and you're very relaxed with your drawings. So I feel like this part is very relaxing and meditative. Also, these are the parts where mostly your audience don't see, because these are minute details that only you may be able to see, and that's totally fine because it's your process. Also, this final render process depends upon how long you want to do it, because it totally depends upon the amount of details you want to put. Basically, it adds very little to too much on your drawings. It depends totally upon artists. So for me personally, I like to render for a very long amount of time, because this is the part where I enjoy the most. And for some people, this can be hectic or repetitive, so they don't do much on this part. As you can see, I have decided to add some patterns to it, so I'm drawing it on a different layer, which most likely I will set it on linear light 2 and decrease its opacity. And this takes up a lot of time. Like, the whole process of drawing this illustration took me around, I think, 5 to 6 hours, and I've sped it for about 500%. So you need patience for this. So after this, it's mostly back and forth using soft brush. Like you can see, I'm still rendering some places where I feel like it needs to be rendered. It totally depends upon personal preferences, and it also depends upon what kind of details you want to put. Like, for example, On this part where I'm rendering, I've decided to put some more lighting and some more hue variations because I felt like this piece of clothing needs to be more lustrous, so I'm adding some more details. So after a few more rendering, this is the final drawing, and with this the video comes to an end. So if you guys have any questions, you can put it in the comments below, and if you like the content, please make sure to subscribe and share it among your friends, and share it among people who are into digital art and want to learn some more. I will be sharing some tutorials in the future, and thank you for watching and sticking till the end. Until next time.